Okay, we're going to take a look at really the last stage of Jefferson's presidency in this video, and we are going to really kind of take a look at the foreign policy of Jefferson during his second administration, which is really dominated by the by some of the things that are going to happen in foreign policy. But there are some other things that even bleed over, maybe even from his first term, that we probably ought to mention. Jefferson was committed when he became president to reducing the national debt. Now, when we talked about Hamilton's fiscal program, Hamilton argued that we should be paying on our debt. The reason is that Hamilton, like many money people, okay, believed that debt was okay. As long as you were paying on your debt, your credit was good. So what Hamilton was really encouraging the nation to do was to build up good credit by paying on our foreign debt. It makes us look like a responsible lendee, okay? And it makes us attractive to other nations to perhaps loan us money. And of course, we might need that money later on. Jefferson's not a big fan of debt. And Jefferson did not believe that was the way the country should go. And so he and his treasurer, Albert Gallatin, decide to cut the nation's budget. And Jefferson will trim the federal budget, cut taxes, and he will reduce the national deficit. There's no doubt about it. But it comes on the backs of some major programs, including the Navy. One of the things that Jefferson does is he will cut back on some of the nation's spending, including its military spending. That's a big deal later on, but it's also a big deal right now. One of the other things that Jefferson trimmed from the budget was something that most European nations already did, and we did as well as a new nation, and that was pay bribes to a group of pirates that dominated part of the Mediterranean. This piece of coastline that you see right here in color is sometimes called the Barbary Coast. Today it's Morocco, Algiers, Tunisia, Libya, okay? But then, as you guys can see, it was Morocco, Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli. These waters were inhabited by a group of very effective pirates and sheltered by these nations. They preyed on shipping in the Mediterranean. But the way to avoid the pirates was simple. You paid the Barbary pirates a bribe. Every year, if you paid the bribe, they would leave you alone. Most European nations did this. We had done it under the Washington and Adams administrations. But Jefferson, determined to cut the national debt and determined to cut the spending of the national government, does not. And the pirates along the Mediterranean coastline will start to attack American shipping. And when that happens, Jefferson decides to send in our warships, what few we have. So essentially what Jefferson does is, instead of spending money on a bribe, Jefferson decides to spend some of the national treasury on a war. And sometimes it's called the First Barbary War, sometimes it's called the Tripolitan War, but it is really our first kind of military foray into foreign lands. So, if you don't count Canada. So here we go. Okay, so the American forces will begin to attack the Barbary pirate ships along the coastline. We will even land troops and push in from Egypt to attack Tripoli. It's part of the Marine Corps hymn. If you've ever sung the Marine Corps hymn, then you know the opening lines, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. So, and we do pretty well, okay? Now, it's expensive, okay? It is it's kind of this, strange sort of event, okay? But instead of really paying the pirates, we go to war with them, which is, expensive, but it works. All right. Minor thing, though. Okay. Minor thing. After Jefferson gets elected to his second term, things turn serious pretty quick. Okay. In 1805, Napoleon is making strong moves in Europe. He is beating up on most of Europe, including the Austrians, the Prussians, and the Russians. Okay. France is at war with England as well. Okay. And so, when both of these powers are at war, we usually tend to get in trouble because we want to trade with both of them. We need to trade with both of them. We were dependent on both as trading partners. But neither side, the British nor the French, want us trading with the other. And so, really, each side began to blockade the other's trade routes. And that puts us right in the crosshairs because we're dependent on both as trade partners. We suffer greatly from these blockades. So the French would seize our ships and seize our cargoes. The British would do the same. But to make matters worse, and I've already told you guys this, the British also had a habit of impressing our sailors, kidnapping our sailors, claiming they were deserters from the British Navy. And so they would then kidnap 4, 5, 6, ever how many sailors that they may need, and steal them away for a while. All right, the French are attacking our shipping. The British are attacking our shipping. It's a bad situation for us. We need to be trading with both of these powers because it's really important for our economy. And now we can't do that. Okay. All we need is some sort of incident to really throw a monkey into this whole arrangement. Okay. And we get it. The British are going to attack one of our warships. Okay. And it goes and it becomes known as the Chesapeake Affair. In 1807, the USS Chesapeake was on patrol protecting U.S. merchant ships off the coast of Virginia. So this is an American ship, an American flagged ship. Okay, and this is one of our warships. So the Chesapeake is essentially on patrol 10 miles or so off the coast of Virginia, certainly in international waters, protecting American shipping. Okay, the Chesapeake will be engaged by a British ship called the Leopard. So here's where the Chesapeake had sailed out here into open waters. A British ship will move to intercept. The Leopard will attack the Chesapeake, firing 3 shots on the Chesapeake before it will eventually surrender, killing 3 Americans and wounding 18 more. The Chesapeake then also impressed 4 of our sailors into British service. So the Chesapeake Leopard affair happens right off the coast of what is today Norfolk, okay, not too far from Yorktown. Most Americans are incensed about this, okay. Public opinion was to go to war and go to war now against the British. Okay, they've attacked one of our ships. They've killed some of our sailors. They've kidnapped our sailors. They've been doing this forever. Let's go to war. We can't stand by and let this. You look at some of the newspapers from that time, okay? We have never on any occasion witnessed the spirit of the people excited to so great a degree of indignation, such a thirst for revenge as on hearing of the late unexampled outrage on the Chesapeake. All parties, ranks, and professions were unanimous in their detestation of the dastardly deed, and all cried aloud for vengeance. Okay? All right. Jefferson is pro-French in his foreign policy and always has been. We get attacked by a British ship, which plays right into his wheelhouse. You would think that Jefferson and Jefferson's party, all right, would be ecstatic about this because this means we can go to war with the British. Jefferson is wary. Now, this has been happening for a long time, and this has been building up for a long time. But now we have the Chesapeake Leopard affair, and we have this incident that we can hang our hat on. All we got to do is go to war, and Jefferson will not push it. Okay? And there's a reason why. if you guys remember, Jefferson has cut the budget. We don't have a whole lot of money for the Army. We don't have a whole lot of money for the Navy. If we go to war with England, one of the world's, still the world's preeminent power, and we lose, what happens? Okay? To make matters worse, if you don't have an army or a navy, how are you going to carry out a war against the British? And this is tough sledding for Jefferson. We look back on this, and even your textbook and all historians tell you that the decision that Jefferson makes next is maybe his worst mistake ever. Okay? And it poisons really the rest of his presidency, this decision that he makes. But I'm going to argue, and I want you to kind of think about this as we talk about this, is what choice does he have? Okay? If we do nothing, we look weak and we look like cowards. If we declare war on the British, we could get beat, and that makes us look weak. If we ignore it and continue to try to trade with the French and then cut off trade with the British or whatever, then we're going to be right back in the same situation, and they're going to do the same things they've always been doing. So what choice do we have? Jefferson decides that he cannot go to war. He will not push for war. And instead, because he's so charismatic, because he is the head of his own party, Jefferson's going to push through Congress an embargo, okay? And we call it the Embargo Act, okay? The Embargo Act is an attempt, really, to force both sides, the British and the French, to leave us alone, okay? And so we're tired of them messing with our shipping. We're tired of them doing things to our sailors. And so what Jefferson orders, okay, is a cutting off, a complete cutting off of trade with all foreign nations. Essentially, we put our own selves under blockade, okay? We cut off all trade with all foreign nations. So what really Jefferson was trying to do was he was trying to force the British and the French to respect American neutrality. He's trying to force them through economic hardship to respect us. So essentially what he's saying is, we're just going to stop trading with you. We're going to stop trading with everybody, and until you respect us. Okay? All right. Think about what he has done. Okay? He has not just cut off trade with Britain and France. He's cut off trade with the rest of the world. What this does, of course, is it puts us into a bad situation. Okay? It will damage our economy tremendously. We can't trade. We can't really leave our own borders. Parts of the nation that were reliant on trade, especially New England, feel like Jefferson has done this to attack them. Okay? That he has shut down Americans' import and export businesses. Okay? And our economy is suffering, and he's doing this to punish New England's economy and to punish the Federalist Party. Now, Americans, of course, respond like we always do. Many Americans ignore the war and ignore the law and start trying to smuggle goods abroad. Okay? The economic situation, though, is so bad that New England some parts of New England begin to talk of secession. Okay? Now, secession means leaving the Union. Okay, know what that word means because it's going to continue to crop up. Okay, so there are even parts of it. The economy is so bad. Parts of the nation are considering leaving the nation because they're suffering so badly. The embargo lasts 15 months. It lasts. It's published, or it is passed in 1807. It lasts until March of 1809. Right before Jefferson leaves office, it will be repealed. But it is disastrous. Okay, Jefferson had considered in some circles, all right, he had kind of talked about maybe running again for president. Okay, but the Embargo Act will kill that notion. Okay, so the Embargo Act is so unsuccessful and so hated, it may have stopped Jefferson from running for a potential third term. Because remember, there's no constitutional provision against that in 1809. Most of the country was furious with Jefferson. Okay, so we're encouraging people to ignore the act. They called Jefferson a despot. Okay, so we were very angry with Jefferson. As Jefferson leaves office, the Embargo Act is going to be replaced by something called the Non-Intercourse Act. Okay, what this did is it opened up trade back with the rest of the world, but not with France and Great Britain. So rather than cutting ourselves off entirely from the rest of the world, what the Non-Intercourse Act said is that essentially we're going to trade with anybody except France and Great Britain. And if they would consider leaving us alone, we might even start trading with them again. So Jefferson's presidency ends on a disastrous note. The Embargo Act is a total disaster and ruins Jefferson's presidency. Now, his Secretary of State Madison will become the next president. All of this that we've been talking about, the war in Europe, the Chesapeake Leopard affair, the resulting Embargo Act, Napoleon's dominance over Europe is all coming to a head. And under Madison, war is going to become, really for the most part, unavoidable. And under Madison's, or as part of Madison's presidency, we will go to war with Great Britain again, the War of 1812. Now, we're not going to talk about that for this test. We're going to kind of stop right here. This is where our test is going to start, okay, or stop, okay. So on next week, okay, for Monday, I'm going to put up a lecture that will deal with the War of 1812. It's not going to be on your test, okay. It'll be on the next test. So what we start to talk about with Madison's presidency and the War of 1812 will be the first real part of what we talk about for our next test, okay? But it has ties back to this, okay? So we're going to end right here with the end of Jefferson's presidency, all right? So I'm going to put up a separate video in a few minutes that deals with the study guide and what we're going to do with our exam. And then, of course, for Monday, when your guys are out of school, okay, I'm going to put up a lecture anyway that deals with the War of 1812. I will probably go over that in class again on Wednesday, okay? So let's talk about that next week, okay? But remember, look for this next video about what we're going to do with the study guide, okay?